Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I've updated the KNULL World Boss Legend difficulty guide. I've added all of the new Tier 3 and Transcended characters that have been introduced since the last few updates, since the last time I did this, and I've also reorganized characters because upon further examination, playing them more, etc., I've gotten, more to appreciate. I've gotten to appreciate more about these characters in some ways, and also, unfortunately, less to appreciate for other characters. Hopefully, I'll be able to remake this list sometime in the future and add Tier 3 Rogue to that list. But for now, we're just going to have to speculate on the possibility of her getting a Tier 3. Of course, X-23 is going to end up on this list because she's going to get an Awakening. But without further ado, this is the old list. Say goodbye, because now we're only going to be talking about how with the old in with the new old man. The new list. Wow, 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 wow. So yeah, this is the brand new list. I've titled it 6.7, so now you know it is for the update 6.7. I think we're on 6.7 or 6.7.5, but anyways, this is the brand new update featuring all of the new characters. When I say all of the new characters, I don't actually mean 100% all of the new characters, because I still have not added, I just realized Heimdall is missing, Silk is missing, and Elsa is missing. And I think I can do what I did at the bottom there. Maybe your eyes have not shifted down yet, but if your eyes shift all the way down to the bottom right, you will see the four Stooges: Spider-Man, Ant-Man, Sunbird, and Black Panther. The four characters that I probably would guess, not that I've played with them extensively in KNULL, but I would guess that those are the four worst characters for KNULL. But this is the brand new list, and keep in mind that this list is not the be-all and end-all. This is not the only list for KNULL. This is not the most correct list for KNULL. These are just my personal opinion. You can have your own opinions. You can differ on what characters you think are better. Of course, I'll explain what my list entails and why I put characters in certain places, but at the end of the day, it's just my opinion, and you're more than welcome to, listen to another content creator or, have your own rankings based on how you feel about these characters. Also, keep in mind that this list and the one that I created has to be based on my gameplay, so it's based on gameplay with 0% Pierce on my cards. I don't have any Pierce on my cards. I don't have any crafted card stats yet. I will be doing that, so this list will be changing in the future as I start to build up my Pierce, and it'll be interesting to see how characters rise and fall based on getting a little bit of Pierce versus a lot of Pierce. But for now, that is how these characters play out. So you could definitely say that some characters, let's say, I don't know, Bullseye or Beta Ray Bill, the B-Boys. That was corny, nice. You might say that those characters get really good with like 4% or 6% Pierce, and that could definitely be true. But at least in my experience with the CTP of Energy, Beta Ray Bill is not that great as a standalone character for KNULL with an energy, with a CTP, with a regular CTP of Energy without Pierce. But why is he in the second row? So let me explain. So obviously the ones at the top, green, those are the best characters for KNULL. That top row are the absolute best, the biggest and bestest, if that's a word, for KNULL. They make him cry. On the bottom, of course, you have your Nightcrawlers, your Wolverines, your Morbiuses, you have your Sad Boy Hours, and that's the characters that are going to struggle the most against KNULL and basically cannot do anything or very, very little against KNULL. But how did I sort of come to this conclusion? So it's a combination of, at least the way I see it, how good the character is, like how much damage they can do to KNULL, how much they can carry the fight. Do you need to switch to other characters, or can they do all the damage? In addition to how expensive they are to get and to build up, and also to equip, right? So you can see there's actually 3 characters on the first row. It's not a coincidence that KNULL, Sharon Rogers, and Sentry are all top row. They're very good characters, but they also happen to work on a very low level with a regular obelisk. Now, can they do like stage 10 of KNULL with an obelisk? No, but they can do like stage 1 or 2, whereas Doctor Strange cannot do anything in KNULL without a rage. So that CTP there is going to matter. If you can only do it with a rage, that's going to knock some points off, versus if you have the flexibility to do it with other obelisks. Now, in the case of Odin and Ghost Rider, they basically need a rage flat out, except Ghost Rider could maybe use a judgment with enough Pierce, but in their case, their damage, their solo ability, their ability to solo KNULL at such a high level is so overwhelmingly good that it puts them at the top there, despite the fact that Odin's really expensive and he needs a rage. He's just so good for KNULL. He just dominates. So that's basically what I considered. Secondarily, after all that, I considered, the character's leadership and any passive buffs that the character provides. So Mystique is still really good despite not being able to solo against KNULL, because of her passive giving you the massive 40% increased damage to villains. We only have 2 of those buffs right now in Null. We have her and Valkyrie. That's it. So those are really valuable buffs at the moment because they're so sparse and they're so rare. Even things like, Beta Ray Bill's 60% lightning damage passive, or leadership, sorry. It only really applies to him and Thor and Storm, but it's 60% and it's a juicy, juicy lead. Now, I want to talk about some of the new characters here right off the bat, specifically in the top level of that second row, Gambit and Bullseye. Now, I wasn't 100% sure at the time when I made that first list, and I'll just reference it really quickly here, but we know now for sure that you need Ignore Dodge for Null. Like, you absolutely 100% need anywhere from 50 to 100% Ignore Dodge. Whether you're getting that from your leadership, you're getting that from passive effects, CTP of energy, or you're getting that from your strikers, or a buff on a skill, you need Ignore Dodge. You need Ignore Defense too, but you need Ignore Dodge. So the Ignore Dodge being a necessity makes the leaderships of Cable, Gambit, and Bullseye all the more valuable. Because if you don't have the strikers, or you don't have a CTP of energy because you're using a rage or whatever, or a judgment, and you can't get it any other way from buffs, then you need that leadership, right? And you can clear stage 4, 5, 6. You can go pretty high relying on these leaderships because they actually do work. And it basically functions as a damage buff because if Null doesn't dodge your attacks, he gets hit by them. So it doesn't really matter in that case so much if you don't have someone like Cyclops. Now, Cyclops is still pretty high. If you look at where he is on the list, we're just going to talk about Cyclops really briefly here. He's not very good, but poor old One Eye. He's obviously worse, like much worse than Gwenom. But the thing is, he not only provides a passive 30% energy attack buff from his ambient radiance, but he has the leadership. So that really buys him some points where otherwise he would be, below Ares. Like, he's really bad in terms of his damage. He would probably be next to Jean Grey otherwise, but because of his leadership and passive support, and because his leadership applies to all characters, it sort of serves in a way like a mini Ignore Dodge buff would, because it applies to everyone equally and evenly. Now, taking a look at some of these other new characters, Thor and Loki, I'm still a bit unsure about Loki's placement there, but I'm confident right now with where he is, which is still in very good company, next to Carnage and Thor. Thor I found to be a little bit underwhelming when he doesn't have the full package, i.e. Beta Ray Bill lead and Valkyrie support. So I don't really see him going much higher than where he is. He might actually end up getting bumped a little bit lower. We'll see. But he is quite strong for an 800 CCF tier 3 who doesn't have any Ignore Dodge. That's really the big thing that's holding Thor back, is that he can't generate any Ignore Dodge himself, whereas Loki can. But Loki struggles for other reasons. He doesn't have a heal, sustainability, etc. Carnage still doing well, although he did drop a little bit from the top row down to the second row. I dropped Beta Ray Bill and Mystique a lot because they've just been overshadowed by better characters, and so they've sort of taken over more as a support / lead role. You could honestly, I'm not saying you should, but you could put an insight on Mystique if you're exclusively using her as a support. Honestly, nowadays when I use Mystique in Null World Boss Legend, I use her as a support for Odin with Medusa. So I'll show you guys the team that I use here, and I use this team to clear stage 9. I never switch to Medusa. I never switch to Mystique. They both have M's. I switch to Medusa sometimes in the last phase, in the cage phase, to get some damage off with the Awakening skill. But the thing with Mystique is she has so much ramp up. Like, you need to do 3, cancel 4, cancel 5, cancel 6. You gotta let it play out. Magneto has to come in, and then you do 3, cancel 4, cancel 5 again. It's just like a 10-second. She needs like a 10-second window to do damage, and you just don't have that much time most of the time against Null. You just don't have that luxury. Whereas with Medusa, instead of Mystique, Medusa, you just do 3, cancel 6, delayed cancel 5, and the damage is right there, right? In 5 seconds or less, she's pumping out damage, especially if her rage proc activates. We have to just sort of finagle the screen back to Rogue here, so my beautiful Southern Belle can continue to be front and center here. She's here in spirit, guys, even though she can't be on the list. So yeah, that's why I didn't put the insight there for Mystique, but that's why she dropped points for me, and that's why she dropped ranking, and that's why some people might consider giving her an insight. Null there at the top. Thank you for the invite, but no thank you. Null there at the top for Null. He's just an absolute monster. My Null is the only one on my roster who can clear above stage 9, and that really has to do with his Pierce. So again, I want to highlight, I don't want to hammer it too much, but the presence or lack of presence of Pierce on your cards can definitely affect how these characters play, because right now on this roster, if you consider all these characters built out whatever maximum build but no Pierce, Null is the only one that has Pierce because it's on his passive effect, right? He has 5% Pierce. So who knows, if I give everyone on the roster 5% Pierce, yeah, sure, Null's gonna have 10% Pierce, which is double, but maybe, you know, they sort of calibrated his damage with Pierce in mind. So he's gonna plateau faster than some of these other characters, right? Because according to some other content creators like Godzillinator and others, you know, Sentry, when you get a lot of Pierce, he just rips through content, and Bullseye, you get a lot of Pierce and he just rips through content, rips through Null. So, you know, that may be the case, but for those of you that don't have crafted cards or crafted your cards and weren't lucky enough to get blue stars, Null absolutely obliterates himself in World Boss Legend, which is both hilarious and awesome. Because usually there's that meme, you know, the boss when you fight them and they're like really strong. I'm not really scary, but like they're really intimidating. And then the boss when you get them and they're like, you know, really soft and cuddly, and they're like, you know, the little teddy bear version of themselves. Null is not like that at all. He's a monster to fight, and then when you recruit him, he's an absolute monster on your team. Moonstone, Sentry, and Moon Knight actually basically maintain their position. Sentry's the only one that sort of moved back. Again, I had him a little bit higher due to other players' suggestions, but my own testing, he's just not that good. He's just not that good against Null without Pierce and without maybe even a mighty CTP, to be honest. I've been very underwhelmed by his performance against Null, and I tried with an energy, I tried with a rage, he just never seemed that good. I tried with maximum ignore dodge, never really seemed that good. Cable, on the other hand, is very, very good. Almost good enough for me to do stage 9 right off the clip with very little practice. So I'm quite impressed with Cable. I think he's going to continue to do well. He's an expensive tier 3 for sure, but he definitely pulls his weight, and he can work with an energy. Mine has a rage, but he can definitely work with an energy. And I think for Cable, it goes for both his Summer Days uniform and the new one. I think they both do very well against Null. They're basically identical. The old uniform, Summer Days, is just, you basically just skip the 6 skill altogether. You just 6 cancel 5, whereas with this uniform, you can actually squeak in the 6th skill, because the 5th skill has a much shorter animation and there's not as many hits as 5, because 5 is like an endless hit skill. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about briefly is just those characters in the middle, the Doctor Strange tier down to the Black Bolt tier, and then sort of the Scarlet Witch tier. These characters aren't bad by any means, but they're just being overshadowed by better characters. Dormammu's good, Star-Lord's good. Like these characters all have things that make them valuable against Null for sure. It's just that they can't keep up damage-wise and utility-wise with these characters above them. So nothing wrong with them at all. It's just that I can't have every character in the top row. It just wouldn't make sense, and it wouldn't, you know, really illustrate their value compared to one another. And so that's why they had to drop. They're not actually getting worse against Null. They just have a shorter ceiling, right? Doctor Strange still good leadership, 20% ignore dodge. He can pass his 5th skill buff. He pairs very well with other characters, especially ones that can't self-buff. But he just can't compete burst damage wise with some of these characters, so you can't quite solo past like stage 5 or 6 with Doctor Strange, at least with my current account build. So that is what the list looks like. I maybe even consider changing Namor's icon to have the base look rather than the uniform, to not have the uniform, because of the testing that we did. But I'll think about that. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of this ranking. Hit me up with where you think X23 and possibly Rogue will land when they meet us next week in the patch, the mid-month patch. I'm very excited for that. Super duper excited for this uniform to come out. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.